Want to keep up to date with what's happening in Thailand? Download the Thaiger app. It works on both Android and Apple. And it's free. All the latest news, videos, and information at one click from your phone. Go to your Play Store or App Store and download now.
Good morning, Thailand. Thank you very much for joining us for the end of the week. Episode number, Jay, help us out, 20? Episode number 20. And we have in the studio Bill Barnett from C9 Hotel Works. Thanks for coming in, Bill.
Right, Tim, we've got a bit of a wardrobe disaster. Who got the memo today? Hopefully our guest today also got the memo on what shirt to be wearing. But
all the way from Hua Hin, we've got Steve Johnston. Steve is the owner of Chili, the Chili Radio Group, also does the breakfast show in Hua Hin, 102.75. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, my friend. Nice to see you. Long time no see. And you're right about the shirt.
Now, when I arrived in Thailand some 10 years ago, I jumped on the phone and I rang a radio station. I said, look, I've done a bit of radio in the past. And the guy I was speaking to said, can you come in tomorrow? And that was this guy, Steve Johnston, who was running the radio station 89.5 at the time. So Steve and I go back a long way.
A long way, but not when you had hair. But that's a story for another day. Sorry, I had to get it. No, it was good days, and I love Phuket. But now I'm these days here in Hua Hin. I bought property here about 5 years ago, and I've moved around the country since then. When I first came here to Hua Hin, I didn't like it. I thought it was more like Dead Man's Shoes. But I've been back now forcefully in the last 18 months, and it's got a massive new vibe about it, positivity, and so much going on. Blink an eye and you'll miss things.
Yeah. I guess during COVID, Steve, Hua Hin's really blossomed just as a drive-in destination for Bangkok. How has it changed during the past 18 months during the pandemic, or less 16 months?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, Bill. I mean, obviously, before the last sort of scare, it was doing very well. The hotels were vibrant for people traveling in from Bangkok. And just in case if you don't know, it's only a 3-hour drive from Bangkok to Hua Hin. The Rama 2 road, which has had a lot of problems over the last few years, is now looking better and better. So it's easier to move out of Bangkok onto the highway, straight down to either Cha'am or Hua Hin or Prambury. And that is exactly what people have been doing. Families coming in cars and coming down to the beach and spending weekends here. It's definitely thrived from that.
So just to describe Hua Hin, Bill, to people that may not know it, as Steve said, it's about 3-hour comfortable drive out of Bangkok. Very famous for being a weekend resort for members of the royal family, historically. But it's sort of like a strip, a bit like Surfers Paradise in Australia.
Sure.
It's like a 3 or 4 kilometre strip of like shops and buildings. I mean, there's not much to it. But you were just saying a bit when we were chatting earlier that it's expanding from that strip along the beach into Cha'am and Prambury.
You're right there. I mean, where else can they go, to be perfectly honest? And a couple of things have happened. That strip has all top 5-star hotels here. They're doing okay again now. I was speaking to the GM of one of the big hotels last week, and he said 75% occupancy last week from Bangkok, which is quite good. People are beginning to open up. So it's had to move out a little bit. And a couple of things that are happening. One of them is a double-track railway, which, you know, like everything else here, you think, oh, will it happen? Won't it happen? And it has happened, or in the process of happening. And they've sort of overbuilt it across the town. It's concrete, ugly monster, but it's a necessity. It's a double-track that sort of bypasses the town and goes down towards Prambury. The good thing, the original train station will not be touched. It's still one of the highlights of coming here to Hua Hin and taking photos, which is next to the Royal Golf Course as well. So the train is expanding out towards Prambury in from just after Cha'am, and Prambury itself has just exploded in the last 18 months or so.
One thing we've seen, Steve, over the years is Hua Hin's been traditionally a very domesticated tourism market. Certainly about 70% of the business there is domestic. And you've got, of course, the snowbirds are coming from Scandinavia during the winter months as well. But I think that's changing now. We're seeing with the access and with it being pushed down to Pranbury as well. Are you seeing the faces change down in Hua Hin since the time you've been there?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, a Scandinavian imprint is definitely here and will always be here, which is good. Different nationalities from all over the world are coming here. But interestingly enough, a lot of Thais themselves are buying second properties here. And I think with what's happened in the last 18 months, it's scared us all. And I think people realize the quality of life, and they've decided to say, okay, we're looking at villas or condos or even houses as an investment for the future. And a lot of Thai are coming here and spending a lot more money. It is expanding at an incredible rate. And, you know, there will be those people who say, oh, well, you know, it's not like it used to be. I don't care if people say that. To be honest, it's a sign of progress.
One thing that's really interesting is the international school there as well. We've seen there at Black Mountain. That's the number of people attending that school is growing, you know, many times over again. And that certainly is. You're seeing Thais come down and bringing their kids to school in Hua Hin, as well as foreigners as well.
Well, not only the international school, which is now a big imprint up by Black Mountain, but the actual schooling here is very good. Yasarat School, which is just around the corner from where I live, they're expanding, got a very good reputation with internationals and Thais. There's a couple of great little schools. One of them is sort of like a freedom school, lets the kids do their art thing, brings out the real personality of the children just outside Hua Hin, heading towards Pranbury. Schooling is definitely going up here, and that's a sign of progress of people actually moving away from places like Bangkok and coming here. And a lot of the internationals, expats, are doing that as well. I know a couple of people, families who have moved out of Bangkok, international husband, Thai wife, kids, and settling by the beach here in Hua Hin.
Steve, grab a breath there. We're going to have a quick break. We're going to come back in a moment and we'll have a talk a bit about the bars around Thailand. The bars are revolting. They're revolting against the ban. So we'll have a talk about that. We've got Steve Johnston there from Hua Hin this morning. Bill Barnett from C9 Hotel works in the studio. And we've got you out there, which is great. And we'll see you on Good Morning Thailand in just a moment. Checking the headlines around Thailand and Friday's COVID update, 3,058 new infections, 22 COVID-related deaths. Thailand's nightlife businesses are petitioning the government to reopen and sell alcohol. Outbreaks at Thai factories are on the rise. Operators are ordered to file a COVID risk assessment. PM Prayut Chan-o-cha is heading to Phuket to see if the Sandbox arrangements are ready. That's meant to be happening next Friday, we believe. And police arrest 2 men for allegedly trying to extort 2 million baht from a man in Nonthaburi. All the latest headlines at thetiger.com. And you're back on Good Morning Thailand. As we whip around the country, today we're having a good talk about Hua Hin because we've got Steve Johnston, the head of the Chile radio group, also the breakfast announcer on 102.5 in Hua Hin. So tune in there. The Chile radio group, you've got a station in Chiang Mai as well?
Yes, basically my partner is Michael from Creative Chile in Chiang Mai. He does everything digital marketing, and I'm the gob on the stick with the radio station. So we have a presence in Chiang Mai. We used to have an FM there, but now we have an office in Chiang Mai, and we have a mini studio in Chiang Mai. And it's great because it gives us that diversity of Chiang Mai and Hua Hin.
Now let's have a talk about the bars. Bill, one of the leaders of the Democrat Party, who are in the coalition with the Palang Pracharat Party, which is, of course, headed up by the Prime Minister, they are saying that they want the bars open. And they've put an 8-point plan to the CCSA, and they've put a whole list of reasons they should reopen. They're saying that over the past year, they've been closed for 200 days out of the 360 odd days that they've been, and they just can't hang on any longer. They need some changes. They need the ban removed. Is the government going to relent?
I mean, there's a meeting today in Bangkok. They're going to be discussing that. Bars are not just the alcohol ban doesn't impact just bars; it impacts restaurants. That's the bigger issue as well, because with restaurants, so much of their income comes from liquor, of people staying on and having a meal, having a few drinks, and this is devastating to the restaurant business, and devastating to employment in this country. And I think that's a tragedy that they aren't reviewing that, having restaurants and having bars reopened.
I suppose the big problem, though, as far as this third wave's concerned, Steve, is that the alcohol, well, the collection of people for alcohol and nighttime activities has caused this third wave, which gives them a certain amount of consternation. What's the bar scene been like in Hua Hin? I suppose not much going on.
Pretty much the same as everywhere else in the country, but something has happened in Hua Hin on the bar scene in the last 12 months. Unfortunate the way things have gone around the last 18 months around the world, but the time for people to take stock and change things. Pretty much the same in Pattaya as well. But here in Hua Hin, the prime locations for a lot of the bars is around the area, around the Hilton Hotel, right by the beach there. And to be fair, they've been going downhill for quite a while. So they've moved the bar area to Soi 94. A lot of those bars are closing down in a place called Soi Bintabat here in Hua Hin and are moving to Soi 94. Purposely, they put them across the railway line. They've got an area of their own. It's a bit like a Rawai situation in Phuket, and they're all collectively going to that area. And I think this is deliberate. I think the area around the pier area is prime location. And we talked about Thai people. Thai people don't want to be around Walking Street with their families, etc. And eventually that area will become maybe another top-class hotel, shopping area, but it is prime location by the beach. The bars themselves, yes, they're closed at the moment, but I agree with what you're saying. And I think common sense will prevail. People have got to earn money, and some of it's going to have to be taken on the chin.
I suppose, Bill, we put this discussion in context with this the Sandbox, which is looming just 2 weeks away, where they're currently got a situation where the bars are closed and they're saying the alcohol ban will continue. So this is a really hot topic, because if they want the Sandbox to work, they're literally going to have to remove the alcohol ban.
Exactly, especially for hotels. If somebody's staying in a hotel, you can't have a drink in your own property. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
You can go down to your 7-Eleven, though, and buy something and take back to your hotel. Go figure. So, yeah, I think we're going to have to look at some changes. Having a talk about the Sandbox, and I know everybody around the country, a place like Hua Hin, Pattaya, Chiang Mai, they're all wanting the Sandbox to work in Phuket, because they're all going to use a similar model to also restart tourism in their areas. Now, Steve, you may not be aware of this, but they've just announced in the past couple of days that for the Sandbox, they're not going to allow Thais or foreign diplomats to use the Sandbox model. Bill, why?
Hugely controversial. I mean, that's something which, again, I think at today's meeting in Bangkok as well, it's going to be under discussion, but the guidelines have not been issued yet. So we're still waiting for the exact clarification. But in principle, what they're saying is that Thais will not be qualified. They'll have to do the ASQ process if they're returning Thais, and also diplomats as well. They're saying the ASQ process needs to stay in place, but yet we're having this Sandbox, which is a parallel program. So there's a lot of confusion between the two, and how to keep these things in their own swim lanes seems to be within the government's guidelines right now.
But assuming somebody's going to have to spend 14 days in a hotel, whether they can wander around the island of Phuket or whether they're stuck in the hotel, they're still paying to stay in the hotel. What difference does it make if foreign travellers use the Sandbox, or Thais, or diplomats? Why does it matter?
Certainly, that's the intention. I guess down in Hua Hin, Steve, what's your impression of the Sandbox so far? What are you hearing in terms of people there? They'd like to see a Sandbox coming to Hua Hin as well, or
I think it's kind of unique to places like Phuket and maybe Samui, because you can contain it more.
Right.
I really don't think here in Hua Hin there is a great interest about Sandbox. The communication by road with families, etc., mainly by cars, except coming in, there's no sort of airport coming in, so you can contain it, if you see what I mean. So the Sandbox probably wouldn't work here in Hua Hin, but they keep an eye on the way things are happening. But I agree that, if it's an island situation, then you can contain it and look after it.
Steve, have you been vaccinated?
Not yet, sir. I have basically on the list for next month. They did a very good procedure here. They used 2 shopping malls for you to go and register. And they give you a piece of paper with a set appointment that you go to, which in my case is next month. But this is Thailand, and it might be next month, it might be the month after.
And assumedly, that's going to be the Sinovac vaccine?
Well, I've gone for the AZ one. I've gone, but I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, does anybody? And the way things are going, even though I've got an appointment for next month, I'm not holding my breath. How about you guys?
Bill, you've had 1 shot of Sinovac.
I've had my first Sinovac, and I get my second on the 24th next week. And the nanobots have taken place, so I wouldn't need a tracking device because the Chinese will be apparently tracking me, according to your conspiracy theorists out there.
So this news overnight may be of interest to you, where there's 350 doctors and medical staff in Indonesia who are now being detected of having caught COVID-19. Some of them quite sick, and some of them in hospital with flu-like symptoms. And 90% of them have been detected with the Indian variant, or better known now as the Delta variant, if we're going to be PC, and they were injected with Sinovac. Now, it's putting a bit of a cloud over this particular vaccine, following up from news in Chile, where they've had a resurgence of COVID-19 there, and they've mostly been vaccinated with Sinovac. In that case, it looks like they just sort of opened up a bit too early. It's not the vaccine's fault. But when this news like this keeps on coming out about the Sinovac, it's not a good sign.
It's not the best, but certainly I guess I would question about the mortality rate. At the end of the day, the reason to take the vaccine right now is you don't want it to kill you. That's the main thing. So that's the reason I've taken the vaccine, is exactly that reason. So if I look at Indonesia, my first question would be how many people have passed away who have the Sinovac vaccine.
Yeah, and that's really the main purpose of the vaccine.
Sure.
It's not that you won't catch COVID, it's that you will have either very few symptoms or no symptoms. Your symptoms will be reduced. You probably won't die. Stephen, hang on there for a moment. Has anybody called you Stephen for a while?
My mum used to many years ago.
Yeah, I used to get Timothy. So just hang in there for a moment. We're going to come back and go through our mailbag. So Steve from Hua Hin, Bill all the way from Willie's office 200 metres down the road. And we'll be back with you in about, a minute or so on Good Morning Thailand.
The Thaiger is getting behind businesses for the restart of tourism next month. With 60,000 daily YouTube viewers and around 8 million clicks on our website each month, half of them from overseas, let us help you get in contact with the next wave of inbound travelers. Thaiger is offering 50% discounts on packages right through this month. Details in the description under this video.
And you're back on Good Morning Thailand as we head into Bill's mailbag. We've got Steve all the way from Hua Hin. He's going to jump in from time to time. What do you got, Bill?
Bill's mailbag, 13 days in the Sandbox, just as a reminder, not far
days.
away. There was a lot of discussions yesterday about the 120-day announcement by the Prime Minister saying that Thailand would be reopening to non-quarantine travelers internationally within 120 days. And W. Wright wrote in 120 days when vaccines aren't available until maybe September.
Well, at the moment, there is a bit of a paucity of vaccines, it appears, but I think we're going to have that situation ramping up pretty quickly. There's a lot of people pulling a lot of strings to get this vaccine rollout working. So I think we're probably going to see a substantial change to that situation. I know people, they're contacting us often and all day, sending us emails about problems of registering for a vaccine. You're just going to have to be, as Steve well knows, patient.
I guess, Steve, down in Hua Hin, are many of the hotel staff, have you seen people getting vaccinated on a large scale down there?
Yeah, I mean, Hua Hin Hospital, as I said, did a very good drive where they got people into the shopping malls. In fact, they started in the hospital and then the hospital got overloaded. Hospital's not a place for admin, it's there for sick people. So they moved it to the shopping malls and they did a very good job, starting with the over 60s, my category, of course. And they did well in the 2 shopping malls. They had teething problems at first. So people have registered, and opportunity for some people to go and actually get the vaccination in Bangkok as well. As I said, 3-hour drive to Bangkok. A lot of people will do that.
I think within 120 days, we're certainly going to have choice and obviously a lot more people vaccinated.
Before September. Peter Murray, there was a discussion yesterday talking a lot about this insurance issue with retirement visas, with non-immigrant visas as well. And he wrote a question that you still haven't answered the question about expats on an O retirement visa. Are they going to need COVID insurance? We don't know. And that's, there aren't guidelines yet on the insurance policies with COVID-19 in terms of renewing visas yet. There's a proposal to the Thai cabinet, and as soon as news comes out, Tim, and certainly that's going to be on the Thaiger immediately because it's a big issue, but there are no guidelines right now. It's pure speculation.
Yeah, I think the way they sort of run policy here in Thailand is they come up with an idea, it gets leaked to the media, it circulates, people are up in arms and complaining, and then they change their minds. It just seems to be the way they like to do things rather than considering it in-house and announcing a proposal. So we just don't know.
Can I just say though, I mean, my point on that is it's interesting. We've been in Thailand long enough to know how it works. So you take things with a pinch of salt at first, and even on a daily basis, it changes. And I think interestingly enough, in the last 18 months, that's happened around the world, not just Thailand. UK is a classic example. They'll say one thing one day and they'll do something else the next day. It's an uncontrollable situation. And I think Thailand, we've said so many times, don't say anything until you're ready, but that's never going to work here in Thailand. They give out the information, a little bit of, on the end, a bit of bait to tease people to see if they get a reaction, as you quite rightly said.
And interesting, from Colin Hazel, the planes are broken, they're dangerous, they're not safe to fly. It's all about learning to fly again. I think that's good for Steve down in Hua Hin as well, because there's a lot of talk about the Hua Hin airport. Certainly, Tim, are you going to want to get on an airplane right away and take a flight overseas? The pilots have to go through retraining, the planes need maintenance. How safe are they?
Yeah, I think I'm going to wait for these aeroplanes just to do a few miles before I'm jumping in them anytime soon. Yeah, you're right. These planes, they've got to be dusted off. They've got to be had all their fuel recirculated. Yeah. There's a lot of maintenance, and for the airlines, a lot of cost to get their fleets back up in the skies, including the pilots, who are going to have to go through quite a lot of retraining. And there's also going to be a few of these 737 MAXs coming online around Asia. And I, personally, am not going to get on one of those in a pink fit.
Hey, Steve, down in Hua Hin, the airport, that's certainly a big story. When are you going to see the airport back for commercial flights, do you think?
Well, I was using it between Chiang Mai and Hua Hin recently, up until the last sort of lockdown. And bless them, AirAsia tried their best to keep it going. But on the return flight from Chiang Mai, there was only 23 people on it. So they had to stop it. It's an hour and 20-minute domestic flight from Hua Hin to Chiang Mai. It's great. I've used it 4 or 5 times. I've used it recently. There's nothing wrong with the airplanes. There's nothing wrong with the pilots. They're there. They're fully trained. They're ready to go. And I'm all for them opening the airports as soon as possible. Here, our little Hua Hin airport has always been an international airport for obvious reasons. Many years ago, King Bumabom used to use it a lot as well. So it's been upgraded and ready to go. And we're hoping that there might be some international flights here by the end of the year as well.
Great. That's great news.
Just finally, the elephant in the room, Bill. Yesterday, we published a story. It was on Thailand News Today as well, about these three school kids in Surin, up in the northeast of Thailand, jumping on an elephant to go to school, which was a nice little sort of photo opportunity. And as you can expect, we had quite a few people saying this is animal cruelty. So what's your take on this, Bill?
It's a hard issue. I'm all for ethical tourism, and I'm absolutely against holding animals in captivity. I think it's an awful thing in terms of zoos and these type of things where they're restricted. But we have to be practical about it as well. Right now with the elephants, who's going to be feeding the elephants? There's a crisis in terms of that as well. What's going to happen to them in Thailand? Putting them to, again, is a kid going to, you train dogs in terms of those kind of things. That's going to get a lot of comments, I'm sure. But in terms of animals and everything else, is it any worse for a child to ride on an elephant? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not as if you can just like free the elephants, let them maraud around, and what are they going to eat? These beautiful beasts last for some 60 years. And a lot of them in their earlier days would have been working in the rainforest, but Thailand stopped rainforest logging. So what are you going to do with these elephants? Are you going to say, well, we're going to put them all in elephant parks, I'm going to pat them and we're going to feed them? And who's got their phone on today?
That's got to be Jay. Jay, the sports set. Jay, was that you?
Who's got the phone on today?
Might have been Steve. Steve? No.
So
mine's on
what's your take on it,
silent.
Steve?
No.
What's your take?
Well, I think it was a great PR stunt. It was a great photo. It did nobody any harm. And the elephant would have got a great reward at the end of it. I'm agreeing exactly what Bill said. And also, what we've got to remember, we live in a part of the world where this is part of their daily life. 3 children on the back of an elephant. It's a great photo opportunity. There was an instance recently in China where a lot of hungry elephants decided to go on a trek for about 30 kilometers into one of the towns and do a bit of marauding. And what we forget is that these elephants are hungry. They need food. It's all unusual for them. And a lot of the elephant foundations have had to go out trekking and move from place to place, even here in Hua Hin. Beautiful animals. And really, I'm never going to argue with one of them, but I don't really think having 3 kids on the back of an elephant going to school is going to make that much difference.
Yeah, and just to repeat, the Thaiger is absolutely 100% in support of ethical tourism. Yes. We're against animal cruelty. We just don't see what happened yesterday as an example of what some people called animal cruelty. You've really got to look at the culture of Thailand, the history of Thailand, the way that they used elephants as beasts of burden. And we think it was just a good, fun photo opportunity, and really you shouldn't read anything more into it. I mean, those kids probably weighed about 40 kilograms wringing wet each, and the elephant barely know that they're on its back. But we get your point, and we appreciated your comment. But with that, we're sort of run out of time, Steve. We're going to have to go.
Well, it's been lovely speaking to you guys. Hopefully we'll do it again, and I'll get out my Songkran shirt as well and put on.
Well, actually, I'm going home and changing right now.
And thank you for the opportunity. Good luck to Phuket with the Sandbox. Keep us in touch with what's going on. And if you're ever in Hua Hin, keep passing by.
And tune into 102.5 Sun something radio.
No, we've got Surf Radio here, which just quickly about radio. It's the FM community radio station here. And one thing I have learned in the last 18 months is that people want to know what's going on. And thankfully, if you've got live radio like you have with what you've got, guys, then people will join in.
So that's Steve there from Hua Hin from 102.5 FM radio and Chile radio around the country. Bill Barnett from C9 Hotel Works.
I'll be burning my shirt now, but...
Yeah, next Monday we go live with Good Morning Thailand every day at 9 a.m. Thai time. But we thank our guests. We thank everybody who's been here this week. Thank you, Jay, for pushing the buttons. And thank you for commenting. Have a fantastic weekend. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Good Morning Thailand.